To our panel, it's character performance for charity. It's going to be a little bit more than that, though. It's going to be more like performance beyond the convention environment, make it a little bit more broad for you guys. So just to show of hands, who has actually performed in suit like outside of a convention environment? Okay, good. Yeah, we're gonna talk about a lot of things today. Mainly the importance of handlers choosing a venue and how to contact organizers for the events, and more detailed stuff about charity work as well. So hopefully you'll learn a lot in the next hour or so. So let's go here. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences. So I personally have been performing in public venues since about 2008, so about 9 years. I founded a Washington State registered and 501c3 nonprofit a few years ago called Emerald City Critters. We're based out of this area. We do a lot of events. I know some of you here have actually are part of that organization. We've worked with charity events, charity organizations such as Komen Foundation, the American Cancer Society, and the Arthritis Foundation. And we also do public community events like festivals and things like that. I've hosted more than probably 10 or 12 panels about fursuit performance and this kind of stuff at various cons. Let's see, yeah, we do about 6 or 7 events per year at ECC. Our main busy time is during the summer because the weather around here, for those of you that live around here, is very bad during the fall and winter and spring. So, I'm also pretty active on YouTube. My goal is to inspire people to bring joy to others through fursuiting. So definitely check out my channel. I got some good videos on there. It's Kijani Lion, #afteryoutube.com. And one more thing I want to add, I also run the When Furball Strike Bowling Meet, which is around here. It's actually, the next one's actually next Saturday. It's one of the biggest fur bowls in the world, and I like to talk about how that became a success because it's really taken off. So.
I'm Leilia. Leilia Spaniel is my suit. I'm really passionate about suiting in public, and I've been doing it for about 2 years now. During that time, I've done probably over 20 different charity events and gone to a lot of things like that. This year, I also joined a kind of a group costuming, similar to like the Anthro City Critters down in Brevard, Florida, called the Agents of Mirth, and they're a really great group to work with. Outside of kind of the furry world, I also do some character performance at Give Kids the World, which is a resort area in Orlando that provides vacations to children with life-threatening illnesses. We have our own set of costumed characters. Some of those costumes are actually made by Disney, and I perform in those characters as well. And also I run a Telegram chat group for people interested in public suiting. If anyone here is interested in joining that, you can definitely talk to me after the panel. I'm super passionate about public fursuiting and getting other people involved.
Okay, real quick, we're going to be going through a lot of information fairly quickly because we don't have a lot of time. So, but if anyone wants clarification or has a question, just go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll get that taken care of. Okay, so let's start off. Let's talk about what's so great about fursuiting in public. As opposed to like in a convention like this. Anybody? Yeah.
Because here you're expecting to see these, whereas in a public event you're bringing the joys of fursuiting to people that aren't expecting it and putting a smile on people's faces when they weren't planning on it.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yep. I watched
convention,
multiple of your panels and I just pulled that straight from it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Few photos here. Now, what he said was exactly right. In a convention like this, the fursuits are more or less expected. You know, I mean, people think they're great, obviously, but there's that element of surprise when you're out in a public venue that people, you know, they obviously don't expect to see a big, fuzzy cartoon animal walking around. It's just, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, a convention. Okay, there's several major differences. One of them is at a convention, it's more or less a controlled venue. I like to think of it that most of the people that are here have experience being around fursuits, and so basically you can think of like the whole convention attendance being your handler, basically. Yeah. As we said, they are expected, and most of them understand the general etiquette about being around a costume performer. But then in public, you can get a whole range of reactions. Some of them can be very unpredictable, so you have to be ready for that. Okay, the most important aspect about fursuiting in public is to have handlers. They perform many functions. The main one is they're the eyes and ears as well as the spokespeople for your group. So basically their sole purpose is to just protect the performer and make sure that, you know, watch out for pitfalls and dangerous situations. I don't know if you talk in costume. Do you?
No.
You don't? Okay, I don't either. We're both pretty traditional in that regard. We don't speak in costume because we believe it kind of breaks the character. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but anyway. So basically it's the handler's job to field the questions from the public, and you're going to get a lot of them when you're out at a public event. The most common one we get is basically like, why are you here? You know, what's your group's name? So, and what's the character's name also, so the handler can be responsible for answering all those questions. As I said before, handlers need to watch out for pitfalls, potential dangers, just kind of act as a bodyguard, I guess would be a good word for it. If you're out in a large group, one of the handler's responsibilities is to keep the large group together, because I've been out in groups, maybe 6 or 8 suitors, and it's so common to get them split up. You know, some of them get slowed down for a photo, and so that's another thing the handler should be doing. Also, manage time. You know, you should always, when you go out for an event, you should always have kind of a plan of how long you want to be out there for. Say you're out for hour shifts and stuff, make sure that the handlers are aware of the time so you guys don't.
It is so easy to lose track of time when you're in costume.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about you, but like I'll get really into it and just be out and out and out. And my handler, who is my husband, who is showing up here, is very, very strict, and he'll, you know, keeps time and it's like, all right, you gotta go back in. So that's a really important thing that the handlers can do.
Absolutely. And so what's a good ratio for handlers to fursuiters when you're out in public? In my personal experience, ideal ratio is 2 costume performers to 1 handler. And I won't go any less than like 3 to 1, because other than that, it's just too difficult to keep track of everybody.
Yeah, you get like some of them distracted by kids, and then they start wandering off, and it's hard to keep track of them.
Yeah, especially if it's a crowded venue with a lot of people, it's so easy to get sidetracked. So, hand signals, that's a good thing to do. Since the suitors don't talk, right? So you need some sort of way to communicate with them. So there's basic hand signals like, you know, this is, you know, check the time, you know, if they need a break, kind of like, you know, hand across the throat. Just develop that with the group that you're with so you understand. Water, I need water, exactly, yeah, that kind of thing.
Do you have like an emergency signal that you use in your groups, or?
No, not really. If it's a real emergency, they'll just contact the handler.
Yeah, sometimes I've actually only had to use it at Give Kids the World once when my bandana fell across my eyes. Oh, no. But at Give Kids the World, our emergency signal is like a break.
Oh, break? Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah. So that sometimes can be a useful one.
Yeah. And finally, never fursuit alone in public. It's just not a good idea. Never, ever. Just too much. Even if you're an experienced performer, there's so much that can go wrong. And if you're by yourself, you're really in trouble. So just get a group of people together that you know and trust, that you would trust with your life, basically. So.
Yeah, don't even think about doing it
alone. Yeah. Okay, so one of the great things about performing in public is that you get to perform around kids a lot. And so we have a couple suitors here. We're going to do a few demonstrations for those of you that may not have experience. Hey, come on. The most important thing when you're fursuiting around kids, especially the younger kids, what's a good idea to do? Very good. The best thing is to get down on their level, because if they're, especially the younger set, they're going to be very intimidated by a large suit, even as cute as Pastel is. I've seen them get real scared. So the best thing is to lower yourself to their level, if you can, either kneel down or crouch down, and let them come to you. You never want to approach a kid, especially if they're timid. So yeah, that's excellent. And maybe hold out your paw for like a high five or something, or a hug, and most kids will warm up to you if you do that. So say you're interacting with a kid that's really scared and unsure. Does anyone know a good idea to kind of help them warm up? Yes, exactly. That's what I was looking for. Kind of act scared in return. do this all the time. So say a kid's like, I don't want to interact. So maybe if, can you act as their handler?
Yeah.
Just say, Leila's the handler. A good way to do it would be to act scared and kind of hide behind her. Like, like, oh, yeah, exactly, that's perfect, beautiful. So when the kid's like, oh, why am I scared of this fuzzy animal if it's scared of me? I shouldn't be scared, right? I've had that work a lot. Also interact with the parent too. Like
Yes.
That's really good. If so say the parent's over here and the kid's kind of scared. If if you go up to the parent and start playing with them, and it's if you're playing with my mom, it must be okay, right? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so say the parent had a very young infant and they wanted to hand them to you. What would you do? That's good. That's excellent. Yes, never, ever, ever take a child or a young baby, even if you have the most stable fursuit paws in the world. You just don't want to take that risk. Babies do not bounce very well if you drop them. So.
What I usually do is I cross my arms.
Yeah, there's a number of different ways to do it. One is to cross your arms, just some way non-verbally say no. I don't feel comfortable.
This is a good point for your handler to step in too.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
sometimes my handler will joke, "Oh yeah, you don't want. She's got butterfingers. Like you don't want her to hold your kid."
Right. Yeah. Sometimes they won't get it, and you have to. The handler needs to step in at that point to say no. Yes.
Another method is to go down, sit down onto the ground if it's not wet or dirty or so. Then I usually
that's one way to do it.
crouch
If you're
down
comfortable
and
with doing that.
point downwards. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you're comfortable going actually on the ground, then in that case it will be okay. So when you're out in public, be even more so than a con. Be ready for tons of photos. You're going to be stopped so often. So. I have my own set of maybe 3 or 4 poses that I use, but it's a good idea to change it up. So you guys have some poses that you like when you're taking photos with. There you go. Yeah, I like this one because it's best to be big and broad when you're in suit. Yeah, it just makes you look that much more energetic. So yeah, so a good thing to do is practice in front of a mirror, at your house or something. See what things look like, and change it up every once in a while. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you so much, you guys. Oh, yeah. I forgot that. It's a good idea when you are posing for photos, try to have your hands visible at all times. It's just for a number of reasons, but especially when you're performing for an organization.
And this is not just in general the fursuiters, mascots.
Yeah,
Disney,
mascots, exactly.
All
Yeah.
of them
Always,
have
you'll
that
always
in
see
their,
their hand paws. Yeah. And I'll let Leilia take this because she has a lot of experience fursuiting around animals.
Cover fursuiting around animals. A lot of the events that I do are dog events. So I have a lot of experience. It can sometimes be a little different than a general event. If you're fursuiting around animals, they can be easier to spook. I found a lot of times I have to tone down some of my interactions. If you see me at a con, I'm very big and excited. So I have to be very cautious at animal events of being too big, excitable. It can really scare some animals. And the last thing you want is to spook an animal. It can get loose or, can become defensive. That's definitely kind of frightening. So always allow the animals to approach. That's, similar to kids too. Yeah, a lot of the things with animals are going to be similar to kids. Getting down to their level can help, but this will put you in a vulnerable position. I do have a story at one of the charity events I was doing. This pit bull came up to me real cute and happy and friendly, so I got down and he was so excited he knocked me flat over on my back and then proceeded to jump on me and roll all over me. While I'm laying here on the ground under this extremely happy dog and thinking, well, I guess I'm stuck here forever.
A vicious pit bull attack.
Yes, I know, vicious. And he was happy and friendly, but it was a little frightening because I could not move. So just keep that in mind that sometimes you can get pulled over by more excitable animals. If an animal is frightened at all or seems uncomfortable or fearful, I would just walk away. Don't attempt to touch them, interact with them, anything like that. And and again, avoid prolonged eye contact, so covering your eyes, things like that. Shooting around animals can be really fun. One of the funny things that I've noticed is that a lot of dogs will start from the back, just like a normal dog greeting, and when they come to the front, they're very confused. They're like, "Are you a dog, or are you a person, or what is happening here?" I do often recommend, if you are going to shoot an event with a lot of animals, just to kind of be aware of their behavior and body language, or have a handler that is good at reading that. So I'm a veterinary technician and a dog trainer, so I can usually spot from across the room whether a dog is going to have a reaction or not in that case. So just some things to think about there.
Yeah, I love that reaction to dogs, because they get very confused. They're like,
I know.
"You look like a dog, but you smell like a human."
Yeah.
You see that process in their
It's
brain.
so fun
going
to
on.
watch.
It is really fun. Before we get to choosing a venue, there's a few things I want to talk about real quick first. One of them is props. Props can be great if they match your character or the event that you're doing. Maybe some of you have seen me. I have a zebra plus zebra legs I carry around when I wear Kijani. We have an event that we do for ECC called Salmon Days. It basically celebrates the salmon spawning in this area. It's about 20 miles east of here. So we have some of our costumers bring like a plush salmon around, and that's great. It fits the event. The downside about carrying a prop is that you have to carry it around. Basically, you can't. It's hard to perform when you have that limitation. But it's great for those that have trouble improvising. So maybe give it a shot and see how it works for you. Also, talking in suit, is it okay or not? This is kind of a controversial topic, I guess, among performers. But in my experience, if you can pull it off, but you have to change your voice significantly.
I think so too.
There can't be a human voice coming out of your character. It's a good practice for those that are into voice acting and things like that. And also something that really helps is having a good movable jaw to make it look realistic, like they are talking.
I think the big reason I think that all that nonverbal mascot things probably stems from the non-moving jaw, and it can be kind of offsetting.
It can
when
be, yeah.
You're speaking and the mouth is not moving.
No, I've seen it really freak people out before, like
the element.
I've seen it really freak people out. It's like, oh, there's a voice coming out of you, but your mouth isn't moving. I'm like, I've seen it really spook people out.
I've actually seen the exact opposite happen too. People freaking out over a moving jaw on a costume that they expect to be still.
That's true.
Yeah.
Since, like you said, a lot of people expect mascots to be silent and not have things like that. But I've seen people with the moving jaws pull it off really well too.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess one more thing we talk about is deheading in public versus a con environment. Especially at the larger cons, you'll see people just walking around carrying their heads, and I'm not a big fan of that. Once you put that character on, you should be that character. Another controversial thing, but especially in public, if there's kids around, that's one good way to scar them for life, is to take your head off in front of a kid.
Mommy, you decapitated the lion.
I do, it's different in a con setting.
Because we all kind of know.
We know, yeah.
But for me personally, if you're in a public setting, I think that can be really upsetting.
So only, of course, in a medical emergency, you do what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, but we're definitely against beheading in a public environment. Okay, so let's talk about choosing a venue. Okay, so in public there's so many different options for performance. Without actually getting into an official event, a good idea would be just to go to like a public park.
Yeah, that was the very first place that I sued.
Yeah, that was one of my first as well. Or just like take a stroll in the downtown. Especially where I live, there's a really nice downtown with it's basically a few strip malls laid out, so it's good for interaction and stuff. And so say you're at a park. There's so many opportunities to interact with the kids. There's jungle gyms. You can bring a frisbee and play. We played basketball in Sioux with a group of like 3rd grade or 4th grade kids, and they took great pride in beating us in that game. I remember that was fun. But public park is a great place. Is that the last part of the slide? Oh, no,
I think that's.
oh, they're the outcome. Okay, I just wasn't sure. Also, there's the aspect of public space versus private property. Now, you've seen videos, I'm sure, on YouTube of fursuiters going into Walmart and things like that. That's really, really risky because almost all stores like Walmart, or all malls actually, indoor or outdoor malls, they have something called a no mask policy. It's something you have to be aware of at all times. So if you go into anywhere on property, they can ask you to either remove that mask or leave. And more often than not, that's going to be the case. So definitely do not ever go into a mall without prior consent from someone that can give that consent. Yeah, even on Halloween, this is interesting because a couple years after I first joined the fandom, we had a Halloween meet at a mall, and they got permission from somebody to have the full costumes there, because usually it's only kids that are allowed to have the full mask. Adults have to have their face showing. And so we went, and sure enough, we were asked to leave because the person did not get the right sign off on it. It was like they had a security, and that's not who she talked to. So just be real careful about that. Also, bowling and mini golf. Those are two really good ideas for me for events in public as well. When you do that, it's very important to ask. Just make sure you tell the manager on duty what is going to go on, and be very specific about it. Say you're organizing a bowling meet. Go on the day that you're planning to have the event, and make sure the manager that's going to be there during the event is there. And just say, I'd like to have a bunch of people come in full mascot style costumes, and just be very upfront about it. And they'll either say okay, that's fine, or I don't think that's a good idea. But just make sure you're really upfront about it and don't try to hide anything. Yes, go on, next slide. So organize events in your hometown. Nearly all cities and towns have festivals, especially during the summertime. This is a great way to get involved. A lot of them have parades attached too. Just be sure to register for the parade in advance. Yeah, charity events and fundraisers as well. They happen almost every weekend. I know you live in Orlando, right? There's a lot of stuff going on down there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on all the time.
So what would be a good fit? Most charities that would benefit kids or animals would be fantastic, like the Humane Society. Yeah, things like, I know you work with a lot of animal organizations.
Yeah, and you got to think about your character too.
Yes.
What would be a good fit? Like I said, I'm a dog, so dog events make sense.
Absolutely.
To do.
Yeah. So. Yeah, do some research. If you have an organization that you feel really strongly about, say you had a family member that's struggling with cancer or something like that, try to work with a cancer society or something that is near and dear to your heart. So once you have an event in mind, how do you get in? Oh, that's a slide we're looking at here. So the best thing to do is to build a portfolio of your group performing in public, preferably photos and video, but at least photos of the costumes. Yeah, preferably interacting with people, but if not, at least you have something to show the organizers, like this is what we're going to bring to the table. This is what our performers look like.
I'd say at least some good outdoor photos.
Yeah, some good outdoor photos that are well presented. Video's good. So explain what you do and how you can benefit the event, basically. So once you contact the organizers, you can be like, oh, this is great, but how can you help us? And that's where you come in. Okay, so one of the things you want to do is you want to state that you want to be performing for fun and not seek compensation, or right away at least, because a lot of those organizations you'll be performing for don't have the funds to give you, because they're nonprofits themselves usually. Also offer to help and assist with fundraising opportunities. Leave it open-ended. Say, we're going to be here, how can we help raise money? There's a few different ways to do that, and yeah. So basically, this is a photo from an event we did over the summer called it was the Relay for Life, which is run by the American Cancer Society. And they had a fundraiser there called the Jail and Bail. How that worked was one person would be in the jail, and when they raised enough money through donations, that person could be let out of the jail. So it was a good way to raise money. And we actually had our critters go into the jail, so we raised some money for them that way. It was pretty cute. But yeah, there's just ask them how you can help. Let's see. Okay, so one thing we need to talk about is when you first approach the organizers, it's best to separate your identity from the furry fandom.
Yeah, I found that too.
Oh, you found that? You have any like a personal story about that?
No, mostly I found that people don't really know what it means, so they just get confused.
Yeah, that's true. Like when you explain what you do, it's best to not use any buzzwords, as I say, like fursuit and stuff like that, because as she said, you won't really know what it means actually. Unfortunately, there are negative connotations about the fandom that still exist, but mostly the reactions that we get, especially around here, are very positive.
Like, I know too. I've had almost zero bad interactions.
Yeah, it's been great. And actually, at some of the events we do for ECC, like people will just come out and say, "Oh, the furries are back!" And like, what? We're so happy to see you guys. So, yeah, I mean, it can go both ways. But anyway, if it does come up, just don't focus on what you are not. Don't be like, "Oh, we're not like those furries," or anything like that. Instead, describe your group by what you do. It's like we like to entertain others and put smiles on their faces. We like to help charities reach their fundraising goals, things like that. Just focus on the positive and what you are. Yeah, always be courteous and professional. Treat, we haven't really talked about the business aspect, but treat it like a business. Just be professional and courteous at all times, and be prepared for rejection. After I formed ECC, it took me, I think, 4 or 5 tries to get into our first event. We just got denied for whatever reason. But once we got into that first one, it really started to snowball, and we picked up a lot of events. So just always, never give up.
And there's always going to be different reasons you're rejected. Not necessarily because they don't want you there, or an interesting experience I had. There was a large dog event in Orlando that I really wanted to get into, and I sent them a message with everything, and they turned me down. But the reason was not what I was expecting. They loved me, they loved my suit, but Disney was one of their sponsors, and they were going to have Disney characters there. If you know anything about Disney, they are very, very particular about who can appear where they are, and so basically Pluto was there, so I wasn't allowed to. But Pluto's cute, so he gets a pass.
Yeah. Okay, one more thing you have to focus on when you're contacting the organizers. Don't do this right away, but do it once you get into the event and start talking about the logistics and stuff. You need to ask if there's room for changing space. That's very important. Every venue is different, of course. If there is no changing space available, you need to formulate some kind of a plan. So I have a couple of examples. One of them is this festival that's no longer in existence, but it's actually about 5 minutes from my house. I live in Bothell, Washington, which is basically across Lake Washington from here. And the festival's in the downtown area, but there's no changing space whatsoever. There's not even a building we could use. So what we had to do is the handlers drove us. We were actually at my house, and all the suitors changed up at my house, and the handlers drove us over to where it was a parade too. Part of it was a parade, so that to the queue area, and then we went from there. So that's one way to do it. If that's not possible, rent out a room at a local facility, such as like a library or office building. A lot of libraries actually around here let you rent rooms for free. You just have to reserve them in advance. If someone has like a pop-up tent or a canopy, that's another option. You can set that up like in the parking lot or something. Hang up some maybe curtains or a tarp for privacy, if that's possible. And as a very last resort, you can change in your car. I really don't like doing that.
Yeah,
if possible.
we have to do that sometimes.
Yeah, you have. Yeah,
we do it a lot in Switzerland.
Yeah.
We do it in parking garage.
Yeah, parking garage is a little better because it's somewhat secluded. I've changed in parking garages many times.
We have many people arriving by public transit in Switzerland.
Oh, yeah, in that case.
Those with cars, they will offer their storage space.
Yeah, that's excellent.
An interesting one I've used before at events is the U-Haul. A couple of events have had like U-Hauls that they'd had all their stuff in, and they're like, well, we've got an empty U-Haul here, and Actually, it worked out kind of well.
Yeah, that's good. I've never done that.
So you just have to get creative sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so once you have all that figured out, all the logistics figured out, what to do to prepare for the day that you're actually going to be performing. Something I found, especially when you're doing a new venue, is to scout it in advance. That's so important, because I'm the type of person, I like to be super prepared before I do anything related to this. Like, I mean, it's better to know too much than too little, basically. So I would go there in advance and scout the venue for a number of things, but one of them is like potential break locations, like especially if it's a large venue. Is there like a corner you can duck around and pop your head off and get some water or stuff like that? Know your exits. It's similar to that, but say there's an emergency and you need to go back to what we call the home base, or where you're setting up. What's the fastest way there, or what's the fastest way to a safe zone that you can get to should something happen? For a large venue, I like to formulate some kind of route and follow it as close as possible. Like say it's some sort of festival. A lot of times we'll just make one big circuit route around the festival and just call it good and try to follow it as closely as possible. It's not that great to be just wandering around aimlessly and get lost, stuff like that. And finally, make sure the handlers know their roles. If you might have one or two be photographers or videographers, that's their job, and then have other people watch for certain things. Just make sure they know what they're doing and what to do in case of emergency, because that does happen.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this last section here is for I call it for the ambitious, because this is if you really want to create your own nonprofit or your own organization you wanted to do this kind of work with. So the first thing to do is to create an official group name, and there's a number of reasons for that. It helps create a sense of solidarity in the group, and also makes you more reputable and easier to introduce yourself. So instead of, oh, we're just a group of friends going out and performing in public, we are Emerald City Critters, we are Critters by the Bay, we are Helping Paws, etc. Just makes you more official. And you can trademark the name and register it as a nonprofit organization. I don't know what the process is in other states like Florida, but here in Washington, the process is actually very simple. It's less than $100 to register as a Washington state nonprofit here. And it's just a little bit of paperwork, and it was a very simple process for us. 501c3 is a lot tougher. I didn't do that right away. I did that about 2 or 3 years after we formed, I think. It's definitely more expensive. The cost went down a little bit. If you have less than 10K in gross revenue, it's now $400, I believe, to register as a 501c3, which obviously we are under because we don't really have any income coming in. The process is fairly simple. I did it all online. The main benefit from that is that you're tax exempt. Donations to your organization are also tax deductible, which is great for your sponsors and donors. Also, background checks, make certain organizations feel safer, especially when you're working with charities that have to do with kids a lot. It's good to have that, just have something to show them that you ran all these background checks on them, so that everyone in your organization is safe to perform. Have fun, but treat it like a business, as I said before. Always be professional and courteous, and yeah, let's see. Oh, let me show you a couple things here. So for ECC, I created, these are our jerseys that we use for our critters. They have to wear these at all of our events. So they're your standard basketball style jersey with our logo and our website. I added the website for a couple reasons, but one is that it'll show up in all the photos, so if they want to learn more about our organization, they just, they have it right there, emeraldcitycritters.org. And also jerseys are great because, a lot of times when you're performing around kids, they have sticky fingers and stuff like that, and it's better to get that on the jersey than it is on your costume, right?
I had one kid stick a lollipop on me once,
Oh.
and I didn't notice for a while.
Oh, you didn't notice? That didn't come out easily, did it? Okay, and we also have these badges. These are good. We have 2 different ones. One of them says Official Critter Handler on it. It's double-sided. Because, of course, all of you that wear badges know it's never facing the right way for a photo. It's always the other side, so I made them double-sided. But anyway, our handlers wear these, and with our logo, of course, to make sure everyone knows that they're with us. And for the events that, some events like the American Cancer Society ones, they actually give us shirts to wear instead of the jerseys. They prefer us to wear their volunteer shirts. So in that case, I have these ones that say official critter character, just like the handler. So again, everyone is on the same page and we're with Emerald City Critters. Okay, so after you create your group, it's a great idea to get more involved in social media, but at the very least, make a website, so you can refer something on your business card to show prospective organizations that you want to work for. Web hosting is pretty cheap. Most of them, you can get many domain services for as few as a few bucks a month for introductory rate. And even we're using the same web provider we have ever since we joined, and they're only charging me like 12, 13 bucks a month for ours, so it's really not that bad. Make a Facebook too. Social media is extremely important for networking. I'm not a huge social media guy, but I found that once we made a Facebook, we had so many. Okay, so here's an example. For the American Cancer Society events we do, the Relay for Life, a lot of them are organized through Facebook mainly. Like it's just a whole bunch of people networking and getting together. So I'm able to, link our photos from the event and the video from the event to them, and they, tell all of their friends, and it actually helps us get into more events. We got into another event related to that based on all of the things that we did with social media. So.
Yeah, I found Facebook is super duper helpful because almost all of these charity events have like their Facebook event pages,
yep.
and you can connect that to your page, and so then people can see, oh, you're going to all these events.
Yeah, there's that scheduling thing that it shows you what event you're going to show up at.
Yeah, so I think that's really useful to have a Facebook page that you can connect with.
Okay, last point I want to make is if you really just work hard at making each event you attend a success, your clients will take notice, and you'll get more opportunities and more events down the road. Especially if it's our very first time at an event, I do everything in my power to just make sure that everything goes smoothly, and they love us there basically, and that they invite us back every year, and also that people that may be involved with other events, not that one, but related events, because a lot of these people work for, they do a lot of different events over the course of the year, not just the one. And they said, oh, you guys did such a great job for us, can you come to this event and help out? And it just snowballs, and it's a really good result at the end. So.
Yeah, in fact, I think the majority of my events this year were either events that I was asked to come back to, or people that had seen me at previous events that wanted me to come to their events.
Yep. Oh, that's a good point. Yep, just seeing you. Make a set of business cards too that you can hand out. Yes, I forgot to mention. I forgot to bring business cards. I usually do.
I did bring mine.
Yeah, I completely forgot. But anyway, have your handlers hand them out as you are performing, especially at a large festival or something like that. When people ask you, who are you with, what's the name of your organization, just give them a card and say, we are Emerald City Critters. We perform at charity events and community events, and then they'll look you up and get more business that way. That's all we have. Start doing one more slide. There. Have fun, create smiles, and make lasting memories. That's what it's all about. That's why we do this. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing good. We finished before. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I think we covered most everything. Does anyone have questions or?
Yeah, questions or experiences you want to share or anything like that?
Have you guys ever done zoos?
Yes. I'm sorry?
Have you ever worked at a zoo?
Oh, at a zoo? Oh, I haven't personally, no.
That's private, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be something you definitely have to contact them.
Yeah, the zoo here in Seattle, they don't allow costumes inside the zoo grounds. We've actually tried to have meets in there, so they're pretty...
We tried that several times in Switzerland, and all are turning us down because they say the animals could be spared.
That's the same. Yeah, that's the same reason we got as well.
Oh, in the back.
Yeah.
I have at the Tulsa Zoo, but they made me do it in face paint.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Could wear the head, could wear a head, so they made me do it in face paint.
Oh, interesting.
And the animals didn't bother them at all.
No.
Kids get face painted at zoos all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing that ever happened at a charity event?
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a tough one for me.
Oh my
There's so many good
gosh.
ones.
I have one that sticks out in my mind. At an event earlier this year, it was an event to raise money for children with Down syndrome. And at one point, I was dancing, and this one little boy who had Down syndrome came up to me, and he danced and danced and danced. I mean, it feels like it was like 20 minutes that we were dancing, and every once in a while, he would just kind of reach up and kiss me on the nose. I still get emotional thinking about it. It was so sweet. He just did not want to stop dancing.
Gosh, I don't have any like one I can pinpoint, but there's just been so many great memories. It's just the magic of fursuiting really shows in public, especially when you're around kids. It's like that moment that they see you and they're like, "Whoa, I can't believe this is happening," and they get engrossed in your character. It's just really special.
Yeah. I would say, you know, conventions and stuff is so exciting and fun, but there's something about suiting in public that, like, you can't get that feeling anywhere else.
I completely agree.
The raw emotion and the excitement that even adults too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I mean, I've had some fantastic interactions with adults who were almost just excited about it as the kids were. And it's just so fun because they're just not expecting you, and just creating those memories.
I have fursuited for my grandparents, which are 90 years old, and they enjoy it a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's something we didn't really talk about, is fursuiting around seniors and older people. I actually did that for the first time last year. We went to, ECC went to a senior center on Vashon Island. And it was a fantastic experience. And as you said, a lot of them they reverted back to kids, basically. They were so excited. They acted like they were 10 years old. You remember that, right? It was
except the one.
Except one. Yeah, you'll get the ones that are like, grumpy. But no, it's just, I mean, yeah. There's always, you'll get kids that won't want to interact with you either. But yeah, it's just, it's a great. I encourage, if anyone hasn't had the opportunity to interact around seniors as well, it's a great experience too, and it brings a lot of joy to them. Anybody else? Any personal experiences you want to share? Stories? Love to hear them.
I really enjoyed Fairy Worlds this year. Had a lot of kids come up to me and they were just awestruck, and they like follow me around. They'd hold my tail and I was just like, "Whoa." It's like, it's okay. And then like they really enjoyed that my tail is puppetry, and so I would dance with that. That was really cute, because that was the first con I've been to where there was little kids, and those are
They're so
extra.
fun.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I have another question. How do you react to the statement, "You are not real"?
Oh, that's a good
Ooh,
one.
yes, that's a good one.
As a character, I'm usually just like, and sometimes my handler would be like,
Yeah, that's something usually the handler would step in and say, "Oh, he is real. It's a real lion." And I'll do like lion movements and stuff like that, and you can usually convince them. Some kids, if they're like that, they're just not going to believe no matter what.
Yeah.
But that brings up one point I don't think we talked about was. Did we talk about talking? Oh yeah, there's one thing about talking that I didn't really talk about too much, is the kids, when you're in suit and you actually talk and the kid hears you talk, they will latch on to that. It's kind of, they'll just, this happened one time where I accidentally needed to talk to my handler, and there was a kid and I didn't see him, and it was like, "You talked!" He's like, "Say something else." Everything else was secondary. The performance was secondary. It's just the fact that they heard me say something. You just wanted to hear that. So just be kind of careful about that.
And I have seen in a group, if you have like one or two that talk and the rest of them don't, sometimes the kids will be like, "Well, why doesn't she talk?"
That's a great point. Yes, yeah, we have had that happen. If you have a speaking character, and then the kids hear that and it's like none of the other characters talk, it creates, you know,
It can, yeah.
an issue. Yeah.
I think this kid was pretty convinced when my handler was just like, oh, well, she's just a dog.
Dogs don't
Dogs
talk.
don't talk, but I don't know, fox or hyena or whatever
Yeah.
the talking character
Yeah.
was. Yeah, they talk, but not dogs.
Right. Okay, anybody else? 5 minutes left.
Well, I've had an amazing experience at my workplace. For those of you who do not know, I work at a special education facility in Switzerland, which provides school and education, work and living opportunities for kids and adults with a physical handicap. And we had an outdoor festival going on, and I was able to fursuit there because they knew me, so I got in. That's how I got in there. And I remember one scene. There was a little girl in the wheelchair along with her mother, and I could see that her muscle cramps were giving her a very hard time. I think she had CP or something. And the moment that child discovered me in fursuit, she demanded to be taken out of her wheelchair to be able to interact with me and give me a hug and everything. So before that mother was able to shove that child into my arms, I crossed my arms and put it downwards. I sat down on the floor so it would be safer, because I never pick up any child, and especially not those who cannot control their body movements. So we sat down on the floor, and the child was put onto my lap. And the moment she was with me, she completely relaxed. She was a different child, and she even gave me a smile. And that, to me, it was a very emotional moment. I had such a hard time not tearing up in suit. And
That's a great story.
And,
Yeah.
it was one of my most magical fursuiting moments ever.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Being able to do this, and the care person of the child said thank you to me, and well, it's a moment I will remember forever.
Oh, I bet.
That's wonderful.
Wow.
The best thing is I was able to do this at the place where I work, and they highly respect me there. And also, I do never mention the word furry. To them, I'm just an animal mascot performer,
Right, yeah.
and who does this for fun, and it's no problem there.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you. If you're ever fortunate enough to perform for physically challenged or someone that really really needs it,
It's such a thankful audience. It's so incredibly rewarding for fursuiting for special needs kids. It's something I absolutely love to do.
Okay, I think we're about out of time. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for attending.